This genius mage was destroyed by his own brother. After finishing the chapter, the reader could only think one thing. It was pathetic, a monster talent capable of changing the entire world, reduced to a broken shell because of jealousy, and in the end, killed by his own family. Even after his death, every crime was pinned onto him. His name was cursed by the entire empire, while the real villain lived peacefully at the top. Not a single member of his family cried for him. That alone said everything. The reader tried to brush it off. After all, it was only a side character story. But the frustration refused to disappear. How could someone ruin their own little brother's life just for power? Still emotionally drained from the revenge arc, the reader closed the book and set a 10-minute alarm. He only wanted a short nap to clear his head before reading the next chapter. But when he opened his eyes again, everything was dark, completely dark. At first, he thought he overslept, but something felt wrong immediately. He couldn't see anything, not even his own hands. Panic slowly crept in as he touched the ground beneath him. Stone, cold, rough stone. His bed was gone. Then, clank, a metallic sound echoed through the darkness. The moment he moved his leg, chains rattled around his ankle. His blood instantly ran cold. Someone had chained him up. He forced himself to stay calm. No screaming, no panicking. First, understand the situation. The chains weren't tight enough to cut circulation, which meant whoever locked him up wanted him alive, at least for now. Then suddenly, voices. A line of light appeared in the darkness before the door slowly opened. The sudden brightness burned his eyes, and a gentle voice echoed through the room. "How are you feeling?" A man stepped inside. The reader immediately tried to ask for help, but the words that came out of his mouth weren't his own. Brother. His mind froze. Brother? He didn't have a brother. But before he could process it, his body continued speaking on its own. "I'm sorry. I was wrong. I won't do it again." Fear, desperation, terror. Those emotions weren't his. It felt like someone else's memories were leaking directly into his mind. Then the man frowned slightly. Luca. The moment he heard that name, everything clicked. Luca, the side character from the novel. The same genius mage destroyed by his older brother. The same boy poisoned for years under the excuse of medicine. The same boy who eventually died before ever reaching adulthood. A horrible realization crashed into his mind. He wasn't looking at a kidnapping situation anymore. He had reincarnated inside the novel, and worst of all, he became the doomed side character himself. His breathing turned uneven as the man continued talking softly. Apparently, Luca's condition had worsened recently. The medicine wasn't working anymore, so they increased the dosage. The reader almost laughed from disbelief. Medicine? There was no illness. Luca was perfectly healthy. The so-called medicine was actually poison designed to destroy his magic talent. In this world, magical power determined inheritance. The strongest mage became the head of the family, and Luca's older brother could never accept that reality, because Luca was a true monster. While ordinary children awakened magic around 6 years old, Luca was already using advanced magic at age 3. Everyone knew he would become the greatest mage in the family's history, so his brother decided to erase him before that could happen. Little by little, bottle after bottle, year after year, he destroyed Luca's body using poison while pretending to save him. And now, the brother held a new crystal bottle directly in front of Luca's face. Black liquid swirled inside with an eerie blue glow. A stronger dose, enough to possibly kill him immediately. One of the servants panicked. "Sir, young master!" But the brother silenced him instantly. Soon everyone left the room. Only the two of them remained inside the underground prison. Then the older brother smiled warmly. "You won't die, trust me. This is all for your own good." The reader's fingernails dug into his palms. This monster truly believed Luca's life meant nothing. Fear exploded through his body like a collapsing dam. His breathing became unstable, his vision blurred, and then a bright white light suddenly appeared before his eyes. Ding! Our guy wakes up no longer in his own world, but in the body of Lucas Ascanian, the official candidate for the title of the most unfortunate victim of an aristocratic family. And as if that wasn't enough, a system window with a survival quest pops up in front of my eyes. The situation is disgusting, to put it mildly. In front of him is a bottle of poison, and next to him stands his brother, the same guy who smiles like a saint but behaves like a demon with a degree in psychology. He calmly explains that Luca should drink the poison again to check the symptoms. That is, the brother literally says, "Come on, let's make sure you don't die too quickly." The hero quickly realizes that there are only two options: drink and maybe survive, or give up and die for sure. He chooses the poison, and while the insides are burning as if a bonfire has been lit in the stomach, the system suddenly gives out. Congratulations, the offer has been fulfilled. This is a real solo leveling moment. Waking up later, Luca discovers that the poison did not kill him, and the system now shows a full-fledged status window. And then the comedy of pain begins. The title is The Biggest Fool of the Empire, health is in the red, mental strength is in the red, luck is in the red. Bro literally starts the game with a debuff on existence. But the main blow is the Dawn 777 feature. The system reports that there are 777 days left before his death, and the chance of changing his fate is a measly 0.2%. That is, the world officially considers him almost doomed. It is here that the hero ceases to be a victim. Instead of panicking, he begins to think like a strategist. He writes down the plot of the novel, analyzes the connections of the characters, and decides that he needs strength, allies, and caution. He's not going to go directly to the main character. It's too risky. Instead, he chooses the person who will make the hero an emperor in the future. The system approves the choice and increases the probability of survival by another 3%. Our guy just turned a death sentence into a chess game. Our guy is finally starting to build his survival plan, and the first name he highlights in his notebook is Leonard Wittelsbach. And no, this is not just another random statistician. It is this man who will play a huge role in the victory of the main character in the future, and will be closely connected with the story of Lucas himself. Moreover, it is he who will later create a core booster from the very poison that Brother slowly uses to kill our hero. Bro has literally found a potential goldmine. However, to get to the right ingredients and knowledge, he will first have to establish contacts at school. And there's a little problem with that. The whole country considers him the local equivalent of the dark cultist. When Luca leaves the room and starts exploring the mansion, a real miracle happens. All conversations are instantly silenced. The servants fall silent as quickly as if someone has pressed the pause button. And then our guy finally understands the scale of the disaster. It turns out that his brother has been conducting one of the nastiest social experiments in history for 10 years in a row. He gradually spread rumors that Luca was connected to the Pleroma, an insane cult that likes to drink blood, steal magic power, and perform resurrections with inferior quality to Chinese assembly. That's not even the scariest part. This psycho was also playing the role of a caring brother. That is, during the day he defends Luke in front of people, and at night he creates new rumors against him. Bro literally staged a 10-year information war against his own younger brother, and the worst part is that everyone believed it. My father believed me, the servants believed him, the whole empire believed it, even Luca himself believed it. But our hero looks at the situation quite differently. Instead of depression, he thinks, so what? The more they avoid him, the less they will interfere. The logic is ironclad. After wandering for a long time, he gets to the library, where the system suddenly throws up a new quest. Now he is being offered to turn knowledge into a real skill, and that's where the real hamster student mode begins. Luca starts sorting through the books one by one. Combat spells, it's too easy. The story, uselessly. Forbidden arts, thank you of course, but when you're already considered a blood cultist, reading a cursing manual isn't the best idea. As a result, the eye falls on a book about divine power, and then our guy realizes that he has hit the jackpot. Divine power allows you to use special techniques, including mind control. Of course, he won't be able to control his brother yet. This monster is too strong, but forcing bystanders to keep their mouths shut, it already sounds much more interesting. In short, the less information will flow to the brother, the more freedom our hero will get. That's why he sits in the library all night and literally absorbs the book with his eyes. And the system is like this. Ding. Congratulate. The divine power attribute has been obtained. Our guy just discovered a new character class. The next day, the road to the academy begins, and here Luca gets another painful lesson about his reputation. It turns out that the journey does not take 3 days, but only 1. Why? Because the coat of arms of the Askenian family is on the carriage. All checkpoints simply wave their hands and let the crew pass on. And then the real circus begins. As soon as the carriage reaches the capital, the rest of the carriages begin to literally part to the sides. Children close the windows, people are turning onto other roads. Someone even screams in fear. It's only after a couple of seconds that Lucas realizes the reason. They are not making way for the Askenian family. They make way for him, because according to others, there is a potential maniac cultist sitting inside the carriage right now, who can start a resurrection ritual in the middle of the street at any moment. Realizing this, our guy just starts laughing, not because it's fun, but because the level of absurdity has already broken through the ceiling. But instead of getting upset, he makes a mental note. Someday he will switch places with his brother, and then he will see how this holy actor will feel in the place of the universal outcast. On the way, the system issues a notification again. It turns out that the study of divine power counted as part of the quest. The statistics have increased slightly, literally by a fraction of a percent, so little that an ordinary person wouldn't even notice the difference. But for Lucas, every bit of strength is important right now. Finally, the carriage arrives at the academy, and then our hero notices a new problem: his hair. Over the years of isolation, they have turned into some kind of nest of wax, strands, and life mistakes. If he's going to make allies, then first he needs to at least stop looking like the main suspect in a child abduction case. All that remains is to find a hairdresser. However, there is a problem. Everyone around him still shies away from him like a walking plague. But our guy isn't going to live like old Luke anymore. Therefore, when he notices a student who is trying to escape unnoticed into an alley, he immediately catches up with him and grabs his shoulder. The poor guy almost gets a heart attack, and Lucas smiles the friendliest smile he can and says, "I'm sorry, I need to ask you something," and judging by the student's reaction, he is already mentally writing a will.
Our guy is finally completing his first big quest. Ding! The system confirms the completion of the task. Chapter 1 is completed. The next chapter opens. And if earlier Luca was just trying not to die, now a full-fledged survival game begins. The first thing he does is look in the mirror after getting a haircut, and then an unexpected discovery occurs. It turns out that under a layer of hair, wax, depression, and years of gaslighting, there was a completely normal guy hiding. Not a handsome man of the level of the main character of romantic Manhwa, of course. But he's no longer the #1 suspect in the infant sacrifice case. Our guy literally got an appearance buff through a barbershop. But poor Melvin, who helped him find the salon, still behaves as if he were being led to execution. Every question Lucas asks causes him to have a new panic attack. When Luca asks his name, he reacts as if he's about to be interrogated using forbidden magic. At some point, our hero even begins to feel like a school bully. However, not for long, because watching Melvin try to stay as far away as possible is still a bit funny. After reaching the dorm, Luca finally unpacks his things: books, clothes, educational supplies, and a box of medicine. That's the medicine. That is, by poison. Next to it is a letter from my beloved brother, and that's where the real hypocrisy masterclass begins. The letter literally consists of, "I was so worried about you. I'm so sorry. I almost killed you by accident. Take care of your health. May God protect you. With love, your brother." Bro has been poisoning a man for 10 years in a row and then writes a postcard like a caring mom. Even the film industry has not seen such a level of acting. But one line catches Lucas especially strongly. "I'm sure you know what needs to be prioritized." Yes, he knows now. That's why the medicine box is locked up. Not because he's going to keep drinking them, but because it's future evidence against my brother. After that, our guy decides to check the state of his core. The effect of the poison has almost subsided. Theoretically, magic should work. He raises his hand. Red mana begins to gather around the fingers, and bang! It's like being stabbed in the chest with a red-hot knife. My knees are buckling. It's getting hard to breathe. But he understood the main thing. Magic still exists. The poison did not destroy him completely, so the plan is working. It remains to wait for the weekend, when the effect of the poison will finally subside, and then it will be possible to proceed to the next stage. Exactly, to Leo. The next day, Luca goes to the academy, and immediately notices the strangeness. No one is avoiding him. No one is running away. No one crosses themselves at his appearance. For a second, it seems like a miracle has happened, and then one student notices his face, and literally takes off like an Olympic sprinter, and everything becomes clear. They just didn't recognize him after the haircut. It turns out that the old hairstyle was so terrible that it was a separate identification mark. Cruelly. On the way, Luca remembers the main problem: Leonard Wittelsbach, the guy he wants to make an ally of, and the guy who can't stand him. And the reasons are quite funny. Once upon a time, Leo admired Luca. He saw his talent. I saw the potential. But then the rumors started. The strangeness began. Luca began to shut down. He stopped showing his abilities. And as a result, in Leo's eyes, he turned into a man who simply threw his talent in the trash. Therefore, Leo's attitude now looks something like this. You disappoint me. Not hate, not fear, just a huge disappointment. And this can already be fixed. When Luca enters the classroom, the noise immediately subsides. 100 eyes immediately turn in his direction. That's when the voice is heard. Look at that. Have you decided to live longer? Our guy doesn't even raise his head right away. because he knows the owner of that voice perfectly well. Leo, the golden boy of the academy, excellent student, a favorite of the teachers, genius, pretty boy, the owner of maximum social skills. In short, a character that authors usually make the main character. And it is his system that needs to be turned into an ally. At this point, a new window appears. Make Leonard Whittlespark your ally. Period of execution, 168 hours. Reward, survival. Penalty for failure, death. This is a real quest from a psychopath. Our guy was literally given a week to make friends with a man who hates him. The first lesson begins. The history of magic. And the professor turns out to be a real raid boss of the conversational genre, he says. And he says. And he says. An hour passes. Half the class is already asleep. The other half is in a near-death state. Even the walls of the auditorium look tired. Finally, the professor decides to enliven the audience with a question. At which meeting was it decided to make it mandatory for magicians to participate in the annual Eucharist? Silence. Dead. Absolutely. No one knows the answer. The professor is already beginning to suffer from his own existence. And then Luke remembers the book about divine power. The one I've been cramming all the way. He knows the answer, but there is a risk. Any unusual activity can attract your brother's attention. On the other hand, his brother himself recently advised him to improve his grades. It turns out to be a funny situation. If you find fault, there will be nothing to find fault with. Our guy makes a decision. He raises his head, and he speaks calmly. The second cathedral of Lighterum. The class freezes instantly. All. Everything at all. The professor looks as if he has just seen a talking dragon, and the professor himself just can't believe it for a few seconds, because the man everyone thought was a useless idiot had just answered a question that no one else could answer. But Lucas is only interested in one person. Leo. He looks at him, and for the first time, he doesn't see contempt. Not a joke. Not an annoyance. And a surprise. A real surprise. And then the system happily issues a new message. Ding. A special reward. Hint. Check the probability of survival. And apparently, our guy just took the first real step towards turning his whole life around.